I think the international community has been on them not to, so I think it will be quite difficult for them to do that. I don't know. But they can do anything. But postponing it would be in our interest and not theirs, so I don't know.
It is going. Good morning, viewers. Welcome to the one-on-one media chat with Honorable Omosede Igbinedion, the member representing Ovia Federal Constituency. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. How's the campaign been?
Wow, it's been hectic. It's been very, very hectic.
Oh. So we just have today left for the campaign. So,
correct.
So hopefully, let's pray all things being equal. The election takes place on Saturday.
Yeah.
Let's see how things pans out for this nation. Now we're going to start off this way, like I always do with every guest I have on the show. You're part of the People's Democratic Party. They were the one that initiated, they started democracy in Nigeria in 1999. For 16 years, they were in power. In 2015, Nigerians felt that there is a need for us to have something differently, because this is not the kind of country that we want for ourselves. So your party was voted out of power.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2019, you guys are clamoring to come back. So what do you guys have now to do differently from what you've done in time past?
Well, I think so much. First of all, let's start here. I believe that the People's Democratic Party had, being at the helm of affairs since for the past 16 years, running this country, I think that they did a pretty good job. And this time around, they've learned from certain mistakes. The change mantra came about, and this whole fight on corruption, and Nigerians applauded it, and Nigerians embraced it. I remember back then in 2015 when I was campaigning, and you heard people talking about change. Change was such a catchy word. Whoever came up with it was just awesome, because that's what Nigerians wanted to hear, and they gave them exactly what they wanted to hear, which was change. And I said, look, you can either have a change for the better or a change for the worse. And in my estimation, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians, the majority of the country, they believe that the country has changed for the worse. I know that the dip in oil prices has affected things, but however, being on campaign now, it's simply put, look, during the PDP years, just in 2015, if you recall, rice was about 6,500 to 7,000 naira. Today it's 23,000 naira. I mean, that has been a drastic rise in itself. Then not to mention the price of petrol that's gone up from 87 to 145. We're talking about over 20 million Nigerians without jobs. I think that the fight on corruption also sent out a lot of people out of the country in fear of whatever it is. There was this scamper, and people just for some reason lost faith in Nigeria. And I don't think Nigeria was very attractive as well to a lot of foreign investors when the APC came on board, that's in my estimation, however. And I think that greatly affected things. However, the PDP have now, being in opposition, because we're never in opposition, and not being at the helm of affairs, we've had the opportunity to sit back and watch this country being run. We have seen the mistakes that the APC have made, and we've also noticed the maybe faults that we have had, maybe by not tightening the bolts enough and trying to really look deeply into corruption. But the APC's fight on corruption, plainly to me, has just been a fight of the opposition, fighting the PDP. It's not been a true fight on corruption itself. And I think that corruption in Nigeria is deeply rooted. It's very deeply rooted, and it's something that we just have to have a complete overhaul to be able to eradicate it. And I think that more and more, I like the Atiku agenda of trying to incorporate at least 40% of youths into his government, eradicate corruption, because I want to say that it's the older Nigerians that are more corrupt than anybody. I think the younger generation, they have, I don't think that they are a corrupt generation.
Okay, so in a nutshell, you say
Yes.
When you talk about corruption in Nigeria, it has to do with the older generation.
I think so.
Okay, not your generation.
No, we don't know how to be corrupt.
Okay, okay. Now, I beg to disagree with you because the younger generation you're talking of, we grew up, it was this older generation that taught us the virtues that we have. So how suddenly a man, you cannot give it to a child and the child begin to act differently.
No.
You understand? If you say a corruption is endemic, it is isn't deep into the fabrics of the nation.
Yes,
I believe it's cut across. It's not age sensitive. It's not gender sensitive. In Nigeria, there's corruption in the land. There's corruption in the land.
Why?
We've seen youths. We've seen states where youths are governors, and we've seen the level of corruption that take place there. We've seen where youths have been given ministerial position. We see the kind of corruption that take place in their ministry. So I want to chip in that I beg to differ in that aspect. That
I love to hear you cite an example
of young youths.
Yes.
Are corrupt. I'm not going to call names. I just use word states. I use ministries because the position I'm occupying now as the interviewer, I'm not allowed to mention names.
Okay. Because if you were specific, I'd be able to tell you. Okay. I'd be able to answer that. But I really think that you.
So you feel article coming in to bring youths into the system?
Yes.
Will take care of
clean
corruption.
up a lot. Yes, it will. I believe so.
Okay. Now, talking about corruption, I'm happy we've come to an agreement that that's one of the technical blows that they gave to your administration. The reason why Nigerians wanted to send PDP out was because of corruption. And the APC, they were smart enough to catch in on it. Now, so far there's a perception, I'm not going to say allegation, perception that the candidate that your party is feeding is corrupt.
Certainly not. Certainly not. 100% certainly not. There's nothing to prove that the presidential flag bearer of our great party is corrupt. There's no proof on that. I just think that that's...
Have you had the opportunity of working directly with him?
Yes, I have, and he's a wonderful person.
Okay, now his principal, the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, in his book, My Watch, wrote some things about that man, about your candidate, and he said that that man is the definition of corruption.
And what has he said now?
A lot of persons believe that what he's saying about him now is simply politics.
No, it's not politics. I don't know. Well, when you work very closely together, you know, you're bound to have tongue and teeth do clash, as they say. So I think that if that was just, I don't know, if he was blowing hot after, you know, that administration, well, I don't know. I really don't know what transpired between them. However, he's come out right now and he's supporting him, and that must be something. So I would disregard that.
So you're saying, in essence, now that there's nothing like corruption in the People's Democratic Party?
There's corruption everywhere.
Okay.
But that question, there's corruption everywhere. There's corruption in APC.
Okay.
There might be corruption in PDP. There's corruption everywhere, I told you. It's deeply rooted in our society, and it's something that we must eradicate.
Let's leave Nigeria. Let's come to you now.
Yes.
You are among the privileged Nigerians that we have.
Okay.
At the age of 34,
yes,
you were elected as a legislator of the National Assembly.
Yes. So
let's just give us like a background overview.
Well, I think being from a political family, a political background, it was inevitable that possibly I might one day veer into politics. When I was at university, I actually went in to study politics, and then I changed my course to law. My parents wanted me to do law, and I wanted to do politics. So I think I've always had this flair for politics. And growing up closely with my dad, I was always around when he would have his political meetings and so on, when I was home on holidays from England. So I'm a people person, and I think that's what really drew me into politics. I like being around people, and I like helping people the best way I can. And I think that is really what, drew me into politics. Yes.
And I want to ask this question now. Yes. Assuming you are not Omosede Igbinedion, what do you think are your chances of gaining prominence in the Nigerian political space?
That's an interesting question. Well, first of all, as a woman in itself, you know, you can say that there is a glass ceiling. Politics in Nigeria is very male-dominated, and a lot of women shy away from politics for so many reasons. Some women, it's because maybe they're married and, you know, their husbands may not want them to be in politics. Some women, it's the financial implications of, you know, running an election and how expensive it really is, you know, and can they honestly afford it. And politics is something that is like a 24-hour lifestyle. You know, it doesn't stop. Like, literally, I had 2 hours sleep last night. Well, less than. I slept between 6 o'clock this morning and 7:20, I would say. You know, and yeah, I'm up here now. And sometimes it's just like that. So I think that it's still very difficult for someone to contest an election in this country without funding. However, it depends where, you know, in the country you're contesting from, because politics is local at any level. And like some people, they were so lucky, they came in on the Buhari wind of change into the National Assembly, and they just sailed through, you know, and just using the change mantra, it didn't cost them a lot. When we sit down and we draw comparisons between how much we spent on election and how much our colleagues spent, it's interesting to hear of the discrepancies and the differences in amounts, which are, you know, astronomical, because some states it's more intense than others, you know. But for me, as well, you know, I happen to be the first lady to go to the House of Representatives from Edo State. So that in itself was a glass ceiling that had to be broken. And I'm really happy that I did that, because I think it's paved way for a lot of other young women to be able to contest this position as well, which to me was just in itself something, you know. However, yes, my name was a blessing, and it was also an issue too, because I had a brother that was a governor in the state. I've had a brother that's been a local government chairman and so on. And, you know, people form their own opinions and then they now judge you by it. Like I remember when my brother was governor of the state, I was in secondary school in England, so I didn't know what was going on, you know. But I have some people that, you know, say he did well. Some people, you know, have their own opinions, and for that, like, I get attacked. And I think it's quite funny because, like I said, I was in secondary school at that time in England, and I didn't know what was going on. I never had a contract with the Edo State government. I didn't know anything about, you know, the affairs of whatever it was here. So there's been pros and cons, you know. My dad has been very supportive. My mom has been very supportive. Having that family support is also very, very important, you know, very, very important. And I think that, well, you know, not being Omosede Igbinedion and contesting the same position, it would be difficult.
For you to get the seats.
Yes,
right?
It would be difficult.
Okay, great. You see, I like, there's one thing I've established here in the way you answer my question, my sincerity. I think I like that. Now, you have your legislative interest. One is women and children advocacy, poverty alleviation, education, and Niger Delta issues. Now, let's start with poverty alleviation.
Yes. Okay. For poverty alleviation, I would say it's difficult. I come from a constituency that is, it's mixed. It's rural. It's also, you know, got a little bit of it is in the metropolis, but it's mainly rural. And it's difficult. You know, going through my constituency alone, the 23 wards in my constituency and the areas in which I have to touch, I mean, your heart just breaks. Like, yesterday I went through to Gile Gile, and I saw a little baby. I wanted to use the bathroom, so I had to ask. I stopped at someone's mud house, and I said, "Can I use your bathroom?" And they showed me some place, and it had a stick across it. I said, "Yeah, right there." And I was like, "Ooh!" And I went in there, and I was like, "Wow, this is something," you know. But it's good to see how people live. And I saw a little baby, and he was laying on the floor, and he, you know, didn't have his clothes on, and I just thought to myself, this is very unhygienic, you know. Coming from, of course, a home where, you know, if you have your child, you make sure that everything is sanitized and you're using Lysol everywhere. Sorry, I've got a weak eye. Yeah. And I looked at this little baby and I said, wow, and my heart just melted, you know. And sometimes I'm out and I see children, especially because I love kids, and I just think to myself, how are they growing up, you know? And I look at the people, they're happy with the little that they have. It concerns me. You know, it's something that really, really does concern me. And I just thought to myself, you know what, politics is a way to touch lives, if it's done the right way. You know, I wish, like, I could, if I show you my phone on a daily basis, I get hundreds of calls, I get lots of messages, and people need help with just the smallest things, from like school fees to house rent to their wife is sick to hospital bills to you know, burials to this, to that. You know, the needs, their needs are very genuine. They're not wants, they're needs. They're real needs. And I grew up in England, so like, first things first, like, you're going to hospital here in England, and you know, you've got the NHS, you can just walk in. But in Nigeria, you cannot just walk into a hospital and not have money and then expect them to admit you. Sometimes they're very hostile in these hospitals, and then you find lose their lives for no reason. You know, you have council flats in England too, where if you don't have a home, you can have a council flat, and it's difficult. And when you see what it is here now, and another thing too is that, like, you know, when we're on campaign, people expect you to promise heaven and earth, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I get to places, they're like, oh, this is our healthcare center. You know, there's no health worker here. I'm like, but that's not my duty. You know, the people don't understand the duty of a legislator and the duty of a local government chairman and the state government. They just lump everything together, or what the federal government is supposed to do. They just lump everything together and expect that you should do everything. And you see, for me, I try to also educate my people on campaign. I'm not going to stand up on a podium and start lying and saying, I'll do this, I'll do that. I think that is very, very false. And then, you know, later on you come back 4 years later, if you so wish, and then the people are saying, but you promised us this and that. You know, so I like to be realistic and voter education, but they don't understand. You know, not everybody can comprehend and understand this is it. Not everyone can comprehend, you know, to understand that, okay, you know, the budget, they didn't release funds at such and such a time, so therefore the implementation of the budget is slow, and therefore you're going to have to wait for some of your projects. They are coming out. You know, like I had some solar lights come out the other day, about a week ago. So all the riverine communities in my constituency, I gave them solar lights. Now, to some, you see people on Instagram and Facebook, especially Instagram. I think Instagram is funny because it's a funny platform. It's a platform where a lot of our youths are out of touch. They're out of touch with the reality of the situation. You know, they think that everywhere should look like, you know, a city. No, they're actually rural communities where people go into, you know, the forest, shall I say, and they open up a road, and then they go and have a camp settlement there. Then they want you to bring water there. They want you to bring electricity there. They want you to bring a healthcare center there. They want you to bring a primary school there. You know, my constituency is very, very, very interesting because, like I said, the camps, you go into these camps, and when you go in there, you see like over 500 people, you know, living somewhere that you would never anticipate that anybody would live. And these people are barely getting by. They're happily getting by, but they're barely getting by, and they want you to do so much. Now, I asked this question when I was on campaign this time. I asked it to myself, and I said it out loud. I said, should government not have an expansion plan? You know, because the truth be said, if we have all of these people moving and migrating into different areas, you know, how do we ensure that we can give them a quality life? Because you know, trying to have a qualitative life is what is important. You know, access to good water, clean water, access to healthcare centers, access to, you know, proper medical education and so on and so forth is essential, you know. But when these people move into these settlements, what happens to the children that are growing up there? You know, so it's interesting. For me, I wish I could do it all, you know, sincerely speaking. I try my possible best to, you know, help out the best way I can. Find that will call up, you know, every minute of the day and want certain things, and, you know, every month they have a reason to want something, you know, but they're those two that are genuine.
Okay. Now, Honorable, your primary assignment in the House is to make laws and do oversight functions
to the
projects.
Not directly. No.
Okay.
Not directly. Constituency projects, we don't appoint contractors. Constituency projects come, you basically, you know, write down whatever it is your constituency needs, if it's boreholes, if it's healthcare centers, whatever it is, schools, whatnot. There, you write down whatever it is your constituency needs, and when you do that and you submit it, what happens is that you can choose whatever agencies it goes to, dependent on whatever you're asking for.